Well, welcome to Here's to Your Health podcast. I am Erin Muck, the hospital CEO and president of Crawford County Memorial Hospital. And today's guest, I'm super stoked about because generally he's on the opposite side of this when he's talking to me. So I have Don Luensmann here who he's winding down his last few weeks of his career here at our hospital. And he has been the face and voice, mind you, of our organization for 13 years. So I find you to be very, very interesting because you have a very eclectic background. So tell us a little bit about your career and how you landed here.
So I started out my career in radio. In fact, I started in 1976, which is like an entire lifetime in the past. And stayed in radio until 1883.
Dude,
I'm old, I'm not quite that old, 1983. And then from there I moved on to work for the USJCs down in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Then I went to do fundraising and development and insurance work in Lincoln, Nebraska. Moved to Manning, worked for the hospital for a couple of 3 years doing public relations and marketing. Then went to City Hall in Manning and was city administrator for 5 years, went into private business for a couple of years. And then in 2005, I was the executive director for the Chamber Development Council of Crawford County, which was my first foray into getting to meet people who were in Denison and Crawford County. And I liked it so much and enjoyed it so much that when Bill Bruce approached me about coming to work for CCMH as the director of marketing and development, my initial reaction is no. But wait, as they say in the NFL, upon further review, I decided that it actually was a very good career move for me. And Bill had laid out several things that he had wanted me to do. The more I thought about it, the more I thought those are things that I think I would have a real interest in. And so in 2012, I signed on, and I think the rest is history, as they say.
I know. So I think it's important for people to understand your career because that's what made you like the perfect person for this job. Like you're like a unicorn, and it would be extremely hard to replicate. So it's been invaluable to us. But I think one thing you left out is that you were in a movie one time.
I was.
That was like the best thing.
Well, I've actually been in two movies. One movie I actually made it into the movie. The other one I got cut out. I was left on the cutting room floor. But the movie that I'm in, and you can look it up on YouTube because it's available online, it's called A Specialty of the House. And I play a game show host at a funeral home. So if you think that sounds weird, you go watch it because it's just as weird as it sounds, but it is funny, and I will say that it is funny.
So, and I can vouch for that because, of course, when he said that, we looked it up, and it's gold. It is gold, and it'll make you laugh, and he's hysterical. So it's
it's me when I'm a very, very much younger person. I'll say that. That's at least 25 years ago.
Oh my gosh, it was so good. Okay, so tell me a little bit about what has been the most frustrating things. Like, you're working in healthcare now in this arena. Like, what's been the most frustrating thing that you've seen?
Well, there's actually two things, and I think probably one of the more frustrating things to me is that most people do not understand how healthcare works, and that most people would necessarily complain about the healthcare system. Well, we don't really have a healthcare system. If you had a system, it would actually work for everybody. It would work for the hospitals, it would work for the providers, it would work for the employees, it would work for patients, it would work for insurance companies, it would work for the government. But we don't have that. We have a whole lot of people who are just kind of standing around who are doing their own thing. So there's no real system to this. There's no set policy procedure. It's just a whole bunch of people who write their own rules and then follow those. The other part of it, though, that's frustrating to me is the amount of intervention on the behalf of government and insurers to try to dictate the kinds of care that people receive when they come to see a provider, whether that's a hospital or an individual doctor. The number of pre-authorizations that we're having to do now is ridiculous. We had no pre-authorization employees 5 years ago. Today we have 5 full-time staff who don't do anything but that. And our financial counselor staff has grown in the same way. Why? Because of the way that healthcare pays, the way that the government pays, the way that private insurance in particular pays. Now you have to fight through the bureaucracy, you have to fight through all of the people who are unwilling to pay in order to be able to make any sense out of this, both for the patient and for the provider. Now, I saw an interesting statistic the other day, which I thought was very interesting. In about 2010, only about 3% of all insurance claims were ever refused. Only about 3%. Today, depending upon the insurance company, the average is about 17% that are declined. There are some insurance companies out there that will decline up to 40% of all of the claims that are filed. And the goal is this: not to pay anybody, but to keep the money for themselves. It's the biggest problem that we have in healthcare today. And those are probably the two most frustrating things about it for me. Most elected officials don't understand how healthcare works. And to be honest, most of the people who work in healthcare don't understand how healthcare works. It is absolutely having to get involved in it legislatively and actually work with insurance companies and other governmental entities in order to be able to see this thing and understand that the system that we currently have probably is going to have to get fixed at some point, but the people to fix it probably don't reside in Washington, D.C. I'll just say that.
Probably. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think a lot of people don't understand that in the United States, we spend more per person for healthcare than any other country. And our health outcomes are actually a lot of times worse than most of those countries. And so when you're talking about when there was only 3% of denials, yes, we were sending more than other countries, but we're spending even more now. Even though they're denying, 17 to 40% of they're just denying more. And so it's crazy to me that's happening. But I think one thing that people think that you're you're the director of marketing and foundation, right? Like, so people think that all you do is, okay, you run the foundation, do a little fundraising here and there, run a golf tournament, it's awesome, and then, market this place and talk on the radio a lot, it's awesome. So, but that's not really everything that you do. And I think the thing that we will definitely miss a ton about is that you always know a guy, which is amazing. But one thing that you just brought up, though, is about our legislators and really trying to work with the people that can make change. And you have been one of those instrumental people to do that. So you have the best relationships that I've ever seen with many, many people, but including the legislators. And so I have learned from you, and I appreciate that. And I think that's important for people to understand. Your job is not just simply that.
So anybody who knows me well knows that I'm anti-government in ways that no one could even possibly begin to explain. On the other hand, I also understand that if you want to get anything done, you have to work through the system that you currently have. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, our legislators, at least locally, are extremely available. Mm-hmm. They make themselves available. They care. Both Jason Schultz and Steve Holt, Senator and Representative, they care about what happens. And so they are extremely easy to work with, and I really enjoy talking to them, and they're more than willing to sit down and work through issues with us. It gets a lot more problematic when you get to the state level, I guess I should say to the federal level, because then you're dealing with the peripheries of those particular senators and representatives, because you never get an opportunity to talk to them directly. Almost always you're talking to an aide of some kind. It doesn't make it worse, but it doesn't really help the situation either. So while state legislators are very responsive, federal legislators, not quite so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So onward, I think it is important. So we just talked about what's frustrating, but I think I would love to know from your perspective what you're most proud of in your time here at the hospital.
I would tell you that there's actually three things I'm extremely proud of. One is the transportation service. I cannot begin to tell you, when Bill and I had the initial conversation about he wanted to create this thing, we're like, well, I know nothing about this, right? He sets me up with a gal in Dixon, Illinois, and says, go talk to her because she knows what's going on. I'm like, okay, I can go do that. So I went over there and I actually saw their operation. And the light bulb went off, and I go, okay, I understand how we're going to have to put this thing together. Well, we started that in 2015, and it has been probably the one thing that I could point to in my entire career and say, that was, even if I'm ever going to get into heaven, if St. Peter stops me at the pearly gates and says, give me one good reason why I should let you through, me to say, well, how about that, right? Hopefully that gets me across the threshold. But on top of that, we do our quarterly wellness events. And again, that's something that Bill brought to me and said, is there a way that we can do these things? And I said, well, let me take a look at it. And, well, of course, it's not just me. There's a lot of other people involved. So let's go back to transportation for just a second. That's not me either. We have a lot of staff in the building who are working on transportation. We have tons of really great volunteers who are out there every day picking up patients and bringing them in and taking them back home again. I mean, these are people who are really dedicated to doing this. So my hat is off to them. And hopefully I retire, I'll get to come back and be one of those people because I see great value in that program. But our volunteers do a great job all the time, every day, when they're out there picking up people. But our staff in the building that takes care of our wellness events, they also do an outstanding job. And that's not just one department. We're talking about like 7 or 8 or 9 departments that have to get together to put this on a quarterly basis. It's purchasing, it's lab, it's dietary, it's administrative, it's marketing, it's clinic, it's the emergency department. It's everybody, all hands on deck in order to be able to get those things done. But we do it once a quarter, and I think we've really helped our patients to be able to begin to understand why their health is important and what they should be looking for on a quarterly basis in order to be able to make certain they keep themselves healthy, because that's really the key for this whole thing. And then finally, probably the thrift shop would be the third thing that I would point to and say, you know, it hasn't been a struggle. In fact, I've enjoyed every minute of that. Again, something I knew absolutely nothing about, but you learn this stuff. And I think we've been pretty successful at what we've done. And I think it's been a great asset to the community. I think we've served a lot of people in lots of different ways through the thrift shop. So if there's anything I was going to point to and say, I think these are the things that that I'm happy to tell people that I had a part of that. I helped start that. Those would be the 3 things.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think my top 2 for you has been the transportation. I think that's been a game changer. Every place that I've ever worked, the top community health need is always transportation. And whereas it's not 100% a perfect, we've done our very darndest to address it in our community, which is super awesome. And we have the best volunteers ever, but it takes a leader to get that going. And I think it's excellent. I think the second thing that actually probably the number one thing that you brought to us has been your relationship skills. You've taught us how to build our relationships within the community, because without them, we are nothing. And I appreciate that more, because I think sometimes it's a lost skill. And so you've taught us some things, so that's been excellent.
You know, I were going to point to a 4th thing that I'm pretty proud of, is the fact that we've really become an internal training organization. Mm-hmm. We spend a lot of time, and of course, obviously, you can't see it from the outside, but we have our own 5-star program to try to improve our customer service, improve our relationship building skills with our customers. At the same time, we use this same structure to try to build relationships with each other in our departments and between our departments. And then we do training with our managers, and we've got some of that coming up later on this week. And we are branching out, and I'm helping with the CDC with their Leading Edge program, where we teach leadership skills to other people in the community. I mean, I think there's great value in that, but the relationship aspect of anything, I think, is what's really important, because time spent on tasks is truly time spent. But time spent with people is an investment. Mm-hmm. And I really believe that if you make a good investment in people, you will get repaid thousands of times over. What I usually say about things like this is, regardless of whatever I invested, I always get back at least tenfold what I put in.
Mm-hmm. So our previous HR director and yourself, so Terry Welker, and you came up with Leadership Academy. And so you guys rolled that out with all of our leaders. We did a standardized leadership for all of them, plus some other leadership training. And what we saw was a huge difference in our leadership empowerment survey scores. And really a lot of that, the foundation is about relationships that we have with our employees, because it matters how we treat our employees, for sure. So, yeah.
Well, not everybody is a natural-born leader. There are natural-born leaders, people who possess those skills, but most people need at least some training in understanding what those skills are and how to put those to work. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a real advantage in being able to offer that in-house. I've just been so pleased to be a part of all of that. I feel so blessed to have been here for the last 13 and a half years, but really very blessed to be in Denison for over the last 20 years. I've made so many great relationships in the community, but also across the state, because I know people from every corner of Iowa. And in fact, I'm out in Des Moines and I see people that I know from, different places. It's kind of fun to be able to see people and see them in a different context other than always in a hospital context. But probably the relationships to me is the number one thing, both within our building and without.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So you're winding down your last couple weeks. Tell us what's next.
I'm just going to go help people. So whether it's here, volunteering for transportation, or whether it's visiting people who are older and stuck in their houses. I've got a couple of friends who are in their 90s who can't get out. My mother-in-law is going to be 90. I've got a sister who's recovering from being in the hospital. I got a brother-in-law who had open heart surgery. I mean, I've got all of these people I just really need to go at least visit with. I don't have to take care of them, thanks be to God, but I do need to go visit them. So I'll spend a lot of time going and visiting people, because I think that socialization is so important. And we see that with the transportation service. Sometimes people just call. All they want is a ride. They just want to go talk to somebody. Well, there's a lot of that. But there's a lot of other organizations that need help and other individual people who need help. So that's what I'm going to go do.
You strike me as another Bill Bruce who isn't going to let the grass grow probably underneath their feet. So you will need probably some mental stimulation. I bet you this is not the last that you'll probably come back and do some leadership classes here at the hospital. And
and that is what I really enjoy. And I before I finish today, I don't want to fail to mention Rotary.
Oh,
the Denison Rotary Club has been a huge part of me for the last 20 some odd years. I've been a Rotarian for more than 30 years, but the Denison Rotary Club in particular, what a great bunch of people involved in that. If you ever want to get a quick leadership lesson, go to a Rotary Club meeting. Everybody that you want to know in Denison, in Crawford County, is in that Rotary Club. And you can make a lot of relationships, good relationships, in a really short period of time. You can get a lot done. I promise you can get a lot done. But Rotary has been a huge deal for me, and I've really appreciated every moment that I've spent in Rotary. So grateful that I had an opportunity to run the auction for a number of years. I think in the 5 or 6 years that I helped run the auction, we raised close to $300,000 that got reinvested back into the community in lots of different kinds of ways with not-for-profit organizations. So there are certain things in my life that I look back on fondly. I'm still an honorary member of Rotary. I'm not a full-fledged member anymore, but that's okay. I just kind of show up when I want to and participate where I feel comfortable and do all those other kinds of things. But it's been a great honor and a great pleasure to be associated with that entire group of people.
Well, I think that you have a million things to be proud of in your entire career, your entire life. You have a wonderful family, a beautiful wife. Like you just have so much to be proud of. But I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart of the last 10 years, because I've been here for 10, that I've had with you. I have learned a ton. I've enjoyed every minute, and we've been through a lot of fun stuff together and not so fun stuff together. But you will be greatly missed. We will not be strangers at all.
No.
But I just want you to know how much I appreciate you and how proud I am of you in your career, and I'm so glad we crossed paths.
Yeah.
So
you and me both. And let me share that same sentiment. I've been given the opportunity to grow and do more things since I've been in Denison, both with the chamber and especially here at CCMH. I've been given so many great opportunities to really explore my ability to do things, gain new skills, have new information and knowledge, create relationships. I would have never had that if I had not come here. And so I'm so grateful to Bill for offering, and I'm so grateful for you in keeping me when you became CEO. But we have had a great association, and I really appreciate the confidence that you've placed in me to do the things that you've asked me to do. And so I walk away completely satisfied. My heart is full, and I'm good for the next chapter, but I promise I'll be back.
I love it. I love it. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you again, Don. And you know what? I'm going to speak for the community. Thank you from them as well. You have contributed to this community more than we deserve. So I thank you. So, well, here's to our Health Podcast is wrapping up, and I want to thank my wonderful guest. Usually I'm the guest, so this is awesome. Don Luensmann, may you have the best retirement, so well deserved. Do everything fun that you want. Golf every day, whatever it is you want.
I promise I will.
I love it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, and I wish well to everyone.